Bud Grant is considered one of the best coaches, obviously the best coach that the Vikings have ever had. And so what is Megan, one of your fondest memories of, Megan, playing under Bud Grant?
Well, I've had a long relationship with Bud Grant, not just the 11 years playing, but I think they did 15 or 16 years broadcasting the games. And part of that was doing the Bud Grant show while he was coaching in the 80s before he retired. And he's quite a guy. He's got a patient, common sense approach to everything. And even in practices, not a guy with a lot of words. In those days, I mean, you didn't initiate conversations with Bud. There was a kind of a sense of awe, but he was a guy that was all business. He let the player position coaches, whether it be Jerry Burns or John Michaels, in my case, the offense coordinator and the line coach, that they would do the talking, interact. Bud would kind of oversee things, and if he spoke, boy, you listened, because that means he had something important to tell you. And he was, I think, hard to play for, but as a result, the success speaks for itself. And I think what guys realize that if you're going to be in the league, being a losing team in the league is no good for anybody. Coaches get fired, players get cut, careers are cut short. And as a result, I think we were always happy that we had a team that in the 11 years I played, that we were always competitive. I think we missed the playoffs one time, and that's what you play for. I mean, paychecks were a lot smaller in those days, so an extra playoff check or two meant a lot to a player.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's the success, obviously speaks for itself. And we obviously all wish we would have, won one of them. But it's amazing to be really competitive. Actually, I feel like people don't realize, like, when you start looking at all the teams over the past how many decades, going back to the 60s, of all the teams that have made the playoffs, the Vikings are actually way up there. We average about once every other year because of it. It's just unfortunate at the end. We just haven't been able to get it yet. But it just goes back to, Bud Grant really started that tradition and really started our success as a franchise, really, catapulting that.
Well, I think also what he did, and I think it benefited me in the long run, he went with players that he was always concerned about playing mistake-free football. He put a real premium on veteran players. So he saw some long careers. My gosh, I mean, I would think my career, 11 years, is a long time, but then you see the Fran Tarkingtons, the Carl Ellers, the Alan Page, Mick Tingloffs, 15, 16, 17 years careers, which are pretty unheard of today. Although there's a few Tom Brady types out now that played a long time. That was a different era. I mean, a quarterback could play, and I think Tarkington probably played 15, 16 years. But for the average player, it was, in those days, the statistics would say that the average playing career is like 2 or 3 years. And he kept guys that would not make mistakes, that would play hard, come to camp in shape. There were no off-season training routines or anything. You might get a letter from the trainer, Fred Zamberletti, to do some push-ups and sit-ups, and nothing like today where they have all these off-season training camps and guys have a facility they can go to that they feel comfortable working out. In the old days, of course, it's interesting that we would share the locker room at Met Stadium with the Twins, so we really couldn't get in there before the Twins, got done in October. We would practice at Midway Stadium in St. Paul and Snelling, which was kind of a dumpy old stadium with a cement floor, and you had little lockers where you literally hang your clothes on nails, and it was pretty basic. A shower that probably built for 4 or 5 people would have to accommodate a staff there and coaches of 40 players. So things were different. Things were fun. A lot of camaraderie, and I think it's one of the reasons also we were successful. The players all got along. I mean, there was no friction between players or players and coaches. Not a lot of the dramatic stuff that happens nowadays.
Yeah, that's, like you said, it's a completely different era. It's a completely just different game in its sense, even though we love it, like both. Again, I wish I could have seen some of those good old days, unfortunately I wasn't born yet. But I always say, I wish I could have gone to the Met. Again, I only know it as obviously Mall of America and can see it through YouTube and whatnot. But with that,